let's take a look at the pathway of blood through the heart. Here's a heart. Here are the 4 chambers of the heart. The right atrium, and below it, the right ventricle. On the left side is the left atrium, and below it, the left ventricle. Blood from all parts of the body above the heart enters via the superior vena cava, and blood from all parts of the body below the heart enters via the inferior vena cava. This blood is deoxygenated and it enters the right atrium. It passes through the tricuspid valve and enters the right ventricle. The right ventricle then pumps it into the pulmonary trunk, which opens into 2 pulmonary arteries, each of which enters the lungs. At the lungs, the blood becomes oxygenated and turns red and returns to the heart via pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins, 2 sets of them, enter the left atrium. From there, the blood passes through the bicuspid valve and enters the left ventricle, from where it is pumped into the aorta. The aorta takes the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. There are a few major differences between the fetal circulation and the adult circulation. First of all, the fetus has access to a placenta, which provides oxygenated blood to the fetus. So this is the oxygenated blood, and this is brought in by the umbilical vein. We call it a vein because it's bringing blood to the fetus heart. So one of the things we need to remember is that the liver of the fetus is not functional because the fetus is not eating. So the blood makes a sort of detour around the liver and enters the heart. So this little detour is called ductus venosus. The second major difference is that in the fetus, there is a hole between the right atrium and the left atrium. And this hole is called foramen ovale. It's an oval hole. And this closes soon after birth. So the blood continues to move from here to here into the left atrium. And from there it gets pumped into the aorta and everywhere else. This is largely because the lungs are not functional. So there's no point in sending a whole lot of blood to the lungs. And also the lungs have a very high level of resistance to flow for a variety of reasons, because there's fluid in the lungs and it causes resistance to flow. So not much blood goes to the lungs. So instead the blood gets shunted into the left atrium. There's also another shunt, and that is from the pulmonary trunk to the aorta. As the blood goes from the right ventricle into the pulmonary trunk, it directly goes into the aorta, so that it doesn't have to go to the lungs and then come back and then go to the aorta. So this little shunt here that we see is called ductus arteriosus. Once the blood goes into the aorta, goes to all parts of the fetus body, it returns via umbilical artery because it's taking blood away from the fetus heart. This is the umbilical artery. Since oxygenated blood leaves the placenta and deoxygenated blood enters it, the placenta does the job of the lungs in the fetus. So the placenta are the lungs of the fetus.